All right, let's talk about mental math. You know those people who can just spit out answers to math problems like it's nothing? It's pretty amazing. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a really cool shortcut for finding square roots. Seriously, it's easier than you think. Let's jump in.
Okay, so let's start with a classic example. How do you find the square root of a number like 144? Instantly. Now I know, a lot of you probably just know this one off the top of your head. But what if you didn't? How could you figure it out in just a few seconds with zero help from a calculator? That's exactly the kind of puzzle we're going to solve.
So, our first trick is all about seeing patterns. Think of it like being a number detective. We're going to call this one the 44 rule, and it's a perfect example of how sometimes the answer is hiding in plain sight. Let's really deconstruct this shortcut.
Okay, so here's our number, 144. I want you to take a good, close look at it. The secret to cracking this thing fast, it's all hidden in those last two digits. You see what I'm talking about? So here's the rule. If the last two digits are 44, you should immediately start checking perfect squares. Now look, this is a very specific observation for this particular number, right? It's not a magic bullet for everything, but it's a fantastic example of how spotting a pattern can give you a massive head start. That 44 is basically a big flashing sign that says, hey, think about perfect squares.
Okay, let's walk through the mental steps here. Step 1. You see the number and your eyes lock onto the last two digits, 44. Step 2. You recognize that 44 pattern we just talked about. Step 3. That pattern is your cue, right? You immediately start running through the perfect squares you know in your head. You think, okay, 10 times 10 is 100. Nope. 11 times 11 is 121. Getting closer. And then, bingo, 12 times 12 is 144. And that's it. You've got your answer.
And just like that, the answer is 12. No calculator, not even a piece of scrap paper. All it took was spotting a simple pattern. That's the real power here. Pretty cool, right?
Okay, that was awesome for 144. But what about 225? Well, obviously, our 44 trick isn't going to help us here, so we need a totally different strategy.
And that brings us to trick number 2, the 25 rule. This is a perfect example of how you need different tools for different jobs, you know? Mental math isn't just one trick, it's a whole toolbox of them. And this one is for numbers like 225.
All right, here's our new challenge, 225. And guess what? Just like last time, the biggest clue is sitting right there at the end of the number.
So here's the rule for this one. When a number ends in 25, you divide it by 100, and then check if what you get is a perfect square. It's a really neat little process. Let's actually see it in action. Let's actually try this out with 225. So first step, you've got the number. Second, you apply the rule, divide by 100. That turns 225 into 2.25. Easy enough. Now for the third step, we check that result. Is 2.25 a perfect square? Well, yeah. We know that 1.5 times 1.5 is 2.25. So, if the square root of 2.25 is 1.5, then the square root of our original number, 225, has to be 15. And there's our answer.
And there it is, 15. See how that worked? Just by recognizing that 25 at the end, we had a clear, super fast path right to the answer. That's a pretty slick trick, isn't it?
You know, these little tricks are about so much more than just numbers. It's really about that aha moment, that little spark you feel when you find a clever, simple solution to something that looks complicated on the surface. It's all about training your brain to stop and look for those patterns, for those shortcuts.
You know, there's a line that really captures this feeling perfectly. It's this idea of thinking, I'll never use the calculator again. And it's not literal, of course, but it's about that jolt of satisfaction, that feeling of empowerment you get when you realize you can figure things out on your own. It's awesome.
So, let's boil this all down. What's the main takeaway? It's simple. Always look for patterns in numbers. We saw the 44 rule, which was a specific clue for a specific number. Then we had the trick for numbers ending in 25, which was a bit more general. The real lesson here is that simple rules can absolutely crack problems that look, at first glance, really complex.
And honestly, this way of thinking applies to so much more than just math. So here's my question for you. What simple shortcuts do you use to make other complex problems easier? In your job, in your hobbies, anywhere. It's all about finding those clever little patterns that save you time and effort.